like I said, we're going to go back to Pam Landry, who is reconnected with us, to share more about the core output management solutions. And so, Pam, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Aaron. Can you guys hear me better this time?
That's good. That sounds we got a solid connection. Perfect.
Fabulous. Let me go ahead and share my desktop again. All right. What I was showing you earlier was the included merge and how it can be useful to you in allowing you to make changes to a single merge and have it then flow through every other merge that it had been assigned to. One of the things I wanted to point out to you is the naming convention so that it's easy to find your templates. This one that I've been using is called One Master Template. So I used a number at the beginning of the merge name. And above it, you'll see that there are a couple with an exclamation point. So you can use an exclamation point, you can use a number, you can use an underscore. Basically, the reason that I'm suggesting that you put a character in front of it is to make it appear at the top of the list of merges. Because you may not have, several like I do. You may only have one or two, but it might be a whole lot easier to find it at the top of the list than to look for what you named it and within a whole list of a lot of different merges. So that's the plus of being able to start the naming convention for an included merge template with a character other than an alpha. I'm going to show you just to make sure that this is the information, the demographic information is what I have in the included merge, and I assigned it to this merge based on the file menu down to included merges. I clicked on the add button that allows me to choose my template from the list, and that places it in this box here. If I need to have multiple templates applied to an individual merge, then I can do that as well. One instance where you might do that is if you've contracted with Formfast and had different logos. Maybe you have two different logos for two different facilities, and you contracted for those to be turned into fonts. Then you could place, you could have that font on each template, the different one, and then you could use logic with this criteria button in order to let the system know which one of the included merges you wanted applied at any particular moment. Like, for example, in the case of the logos, it might be a facility code that's in your data file that comes to the FastPrint software, and you would be able to assign that. And those logic screens, those logic screens are the same as they are for any of the other logic places that we have in the FastPrint software, and they more or less equate to if-then statements. So you fill in the blanks with the location, row and column of where your entries are, and choose an operator, and then what the anticipated answer should be for that particular one. And that's all there is to adding logic if you need to use multiple templates. Let's go ahead and cancel this. One of the other things that I was hoping to be able to show you is the label wizard that has been in the software, well, I guess what, a couple of year or two. So some of you who might be on versions that are a little bit older are missing out on a very powerful feature. So what we do with this internally is when we are going to do label sheet for someone, we will create a form design that has the lines and boxes that correspond to the actual stock that's being utilized by a specific organization. Then we would create that PCL and use it in our merge. And we use that in our merge so that we can map it and we don't have to guess where it's going to go. And it would be much faster for us to be able to conform to the confines of a specific label. So we create the first label in the first column, and once we're satisfied that that is correct, then we can go to the data menu, go to the very bottom where we have the wizard. And when we made our PCL, when we did our form design, we had to do some measuring. So we would want those measurements to be able to be entered into the wizard. When it asks for label width, it wants to know from the left edge of the first label in the first column to the left edge of the first label in the second column. And this is to accommodate any matrix or waste that might be as part of the stock, so that we have the full size of that particular location. So I'm going to enter in the label width and label height. They are typically one of two dimensions for label height. It's either 1 inch if it's an 8.5 by 11 sheet of labels, or it may be 3/4 of an inch, 0.75 if it's an A4. It all depends on the stock, and we can find that information simply by measuring the stock. This one has 10 rows and 3 columns because it's 30 labels. And then all I have to do at this point is click the button. It will complete the setup for me, and I would then, because I want to keep my template, I would then go File and Save Merge As and provide it with a new name. I'm going to take off my special character as well. All right. And then I'm going to save it. And now I have the 30 labels. If I were to zoom out a little bit so you could see most of them, if not all of them, you would see that they're all within the confines of their different columns and their different individual labels. At this point, I need to do one more step. I have an option to do this step, but I don't really want the lines and boxes to print when it pulls from the printer, because the pull may be a little bit different, and so I don't want those lines to interfere with anything. So what I can do is use the feature within the job designer under Form to set an alternate form for printing. And all I really do here is select the blank one because I don't want any lines and boxes. It will label it here at the top so that I know what my alternate form is, and when it goes to print, it will not use my PCL that has the lines and boxes. It will use the blank one, and so it will come out just the way I want it to appear. So I wanted to be sure that you were aware of that particular feature. Let me go ahead and save that. And I'm going to go back to my template for a moment. So I'm going to zoom in because I want to show you one other one here in the Print Job Designer. And that is going to move this particular field out of whack. All right? So I want to show you the alignment tool that we have. We can now, in the later versions, we can draw up framework here, and I can just touch the ones that I want to highlight in green, go to the data menu, go down to Align, and say I want to align left. And it will automatically align it. There's no more guessing, no more trying to move it pixels at a time, although we can still do that in certain circumstances where that would be appropriate. I can also line this back up with the rest of its lines so that they're on the same plane by going Data Align Top. So it makes it very easy to maintain an organization within the fields that are mapped on any particular merge. So once we have everything set up and we have our labels created and perhaps we have our other merges created, at that point we would want to make a job. And a job, as you know, just contain one merge, or it can contain many merges. And that allows us to be able to set them up individually in order to be able to do things like have, in this case, on this particular merge, these are checkboxes that could be utilized within the capture client for eSig. Not only that, this is also where we could set up a self-sign that I'm going to show you, this one being a text box, and also any signature lines that we want to set up would be here as well. Let me zoom out a little bit. It's a little bit big here. Okay. All right. I want to choose this job again. No, I don't want to keep it. See if I can get both of them all coordinated for us here as we look at things. When you're working with the auto printing, as I tried to mention earlier, where you can have the registrars maintain their current status and be able to fill in based on the HIS screens and not really know that Formfast is here, that would allow us to utilize the Print Manager. The new features for the Print Manager is the Print Manager Service Client. I think I can make this big. There we go. The Print Manager Service Client allows the Print Manager to run as a service, and it runs as a true Windows service. However, what I've opened here is a control panel that allows us to stop and start the service. However, you know, from within the console, we don't have to go out to Windows to do that. I can also start and stop individual job sets so that it equates to cycling the Print Manager. One of the really super features here is that from the service client is that I'm allowed to create a new job set from here. And in the past, the only place you could create a new job set was in the Print Job Designer. So this is going to create all those directories that you need for a specific new job set. And then you would be able to send your sample data files and create the merges and jobs that are associated with that new job set. I also wanted to point out the fact that you can see that on the individual print managers, if you will, is that printing has been enabled on this particular one, as has imaging to database. So we can have features and we can set them up, and we have icons that tell us what's available for each of the job sets. And all one of these is listed in the job set directory under Formfast, if you were to look in Windows Explorer. I wanted you to also recognize that with this new feature, you can launch from straight into the job set location in the Print Job Designer just by clicking on the button here. I can also look at its individual job set settings to be able to handle any changing that I want to do. One of the things that I want you to see here is the fact that you can now set the log to be a little bit different than you might be used to seeing if you're using the legacy Print Manager. And that is that it can be set, it has an option to be set to log to a database table. And this is just some information that I did earlier today, so that there would be something for this particular job set. And you can see that it has all the different columns, and it's easy for you to be able to read. In addition, I can tell it that I want it to look at different time frames, and it will add those. If I were to tell it to go back to last week, it will do so, but it will put the newest one on top. And since I just set this one up earlier today and yesterday and today, so it wouldn't show me a whole lot here. But know that I can, and I can also tell it how much I want it to retain. You can still save the log off if you want to save it to a file, and I can also search up here. If I wanted to search based on maybe a set of characters, so I'm going to say MED, anything that has MED in it. And you see that it highlights everything that is available for me. So I can go specifically to those lines and I can check them out. Are they the ones that I'm trying to troubleshoot? Is this the one? If I tell it next, it will highlight it and it will step down the page and highlight each one as I go down. So I have many options here for dealing with the log. Right, so this one has powerful features with it as well, and in addition to that, in the later versions, the printer alias names can be up to 100 characters. I would hope you wouldn't need 100 characters, but that allows you to have some options available depending on your naming conventions in-house already. Right. I'm going to move on to web FormImprint. Let me see here. Here we go. I'm going to log in initially as a user, so that you can see what your end users would see. Just basically, you have your job set location on the left, and you have the patient grid on the right. And the fields that are available in the patient grid are changeable, and you can set those up prior to releasing it, prior to rolling it out. Because typically the end user only needs maybe 8 to 10 fields in order to identify their patient. What's really cool here is that you can search on any of the columns that are available to the user. So if I were saying I needed to find those that start with a V, then it would filter it down for me and make it easier for me as a user to find my patient. If I actually had the whole number, all I would need to do is enter in that whole number. And it would restrict it straight down to that. So if I take everything out, then I can get the entire list back for me. I can change what it's sorting on. If I wanted to, for some reason, sort on the room, I can drag it up and put it in the top area there, and I can drag multiples if I want to, but I restrict it to, for our purposes today, with just one. But I can drag as many columns up there as I feel necessary to find what I'm looking for. So you can see that it's being sorted by the room number that's involved. And I can, this will be in place just as long as I'm in this session, but once I log out or it times out, because I didn't log out, then it will return to the default. And the next time you log in, it will be ready for you to look maybe differently. Other things that the end user can do is set your favorites, as you might have already recognized. You can see on mine. You can also, from an administrative standpoint, you can actually repress the ability to select an entire category if that has caused an issue for you, and that is part of administrative options for the site. So you have those options in order to be able to alleviate any difficulties there. The fact that you have favorites at all is also a setup from the administration side, as is the ability to see that you could print blank forms. You can choose number of copies, which might be helpful to you in the case of maybe a downtime where a patient hasn't made it to the database yet, but you need to be able to get them to sign a consent. So you could highlight it, you would check it off, and because you have the ability to print copies, and then you would press print, and it would print it off for you. It would be a blank form. There's also a new feature here where I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stick with this consent here, where I just did a left click on the blue link of the form itself, and it puts me into viewing, and I can zoom this any number of different views here so that I can look at it as a user and say, oh, this is the consent that I want, so that if I wasn't quite sure based on the name, then I could take a look at it here. The new feature here is the fact that you have this print button, and now you can print from the view itself simply by clicking the button. And when I'm finished, I can just click done. So for web FormImprint, as a end user, it's all about the options that were set up by the administration folks, those people who are in charge of handling the web FormImprint product. So let me log out and log in as an administrator so that we can actually look at some of that. All right, you notice first off that I have the ability to edit or delete any record that's in the database, which is pretty powerful on its own, and you would want to be very careful about the times that you would want to do that. But say, for example, that the attending physician ID was incorrect, then I would have that ability to edit it simply by clicking the edit and finding that physician ID number and making that change. I can scroll to the bottom of this window and I can update it. Now you wouldn't want to make a copy of that, but if you were doing some, if you had a test system that you were working from initially, you might make an alteration because of some circumstance that existed at that point. It does allow me, which is helpful for me as a trainer, because I can add records because I'm not going to have an ADT feed to my database. So I would add different records into the database to be able to be utilized. But in the case of an administrator, if there was some issue and you discovered the issue, but you're not going to be able to address it, but you need to get the patient in there so they can print forms, then you could feasibly add the records based on the information provided to you from the HIS. One other thing for you I wanted you to make sure you know is under reporting, there are a set of standard reports that are provided within web FormImprint that can be helpful to you along the way. And under the site options, there is the ability to activate activity logging, which if you have used the thick client in the past, you know that that was available there. And now obviously it became part of web FormImprint, but you have more options for the things that you can choose to log. All right, so from the standpoint here, I'm going to go ahead and return to main because I want to be able to show you a little bit about your eSig features. From the standpoint of the registrar, that Cliff was able to show you some of what they would see as far as being able to have the visuals to tell them whether it was a required field or not. And required fields are set up in the Print Job Designer utilizing the field name and then placing REQ in front of it for being required. In the realm of looking at the administrator's process, you have the ability to set those in the Print Job Designer for required fields, and we have the ability to set a setting such that we can have, when the registrar says done, that it archives all of the documents for that particular patient. And those are set up under the options configuration window. This is also where we would enable the document printing if we wanted to print it for the patient at that time. And this is where we would select that second monitor if we had that in place. And this is the checkbox for archive all when done. If I check this, if you'll watch the top, then you'll see that the archive all button goes away because it's been incorporated into done. If it's unchecked, then it is returned to the menu bar. And I know that Cliff mentioned the mobile eSig and was able to show you some screen prints from that. And just recognize that it would require the latest version of web FormImprint and FastPrint. and some minor changes to the web FormImprint settings, so that you are basically doing similar things, checking a box saying I'm going to have mobile. Let me go ahead and return. Let's say I'm done here. To here, one quick look under site options. I can check mobile client on touch devices. And in addition to that one, there is an additional location. I'm so sorry. Let me just look at it one more time under administration, over under archiving, where I can tell it I want to redirect it, and which direction, what page do I want it to see, or am I going to require a PIN to be entered before the next patient, so that you have some options for the electronic signature. So let me sign one just so you can get a feel for that one. Mine is set up to pretend that my mouse is my stylus, so not quite so easy to do. And this one I'd already done let me pull that one off real quick. What I did was right-click on the thumbnail and told it I wanted to clear the form and said, please fill the form. Clear it for me. So I want to show you this one, this witness one. If the witness is going to be the registrar, then I can right-click on that field and I can click self-sign, and it will simply give me this window saying this is what I want to do. Do I want to continue? And I do, so I'm going to click yes. And then it will place in it the user who is logged into the system with a date and time stamp. So for those types of fields, you're not going to need to utilize the date field any longer. It will be provided here in the electronic signature for the registrar. So if I want to, I have mine set up so that I can individually sign. So I'm going to click on my sign button just so you can see that I would sign here, and I'm going to tell it finish so it'll go to my next one, and then I could, obviously with a stylus, this would be much easier. And then I'm finished. And when I'm finished, if I manually want to, I can archive it individually, or I can archive all if I kept the button, or I can click done if I've activated archive all when done is clicked. So that's pretty much an overview of some of the new features and some of the older features. One of the things, one last thing, I'm so sorry, I just remembered this one. I wanted to mention the size of the fields. Let me empty this one so you talk about that briefly. The size of the fields for the signatures that you place on the form, it's best if you make them match the size of the signing device as much as possible. For example, if you have a 1:3 window that the patient's going to sign in, then the signature box on the actual form in the Print Job Designer would be something like 900 pixels wide and about 300 pixels high. So you get to understand what size the device window is in order to allow these fields to be the correct size when it's presented for the patient to sign, so that you make sure that you have the adequate room. All right. So at this point, I'm going to stop sharing my desktop and return this to Aaron.
Thanks, Pam. Had time for just a couple of quick questions here. The first one that came through. Currently, I can only see what jobs printed from what printer in the log. Can I see what user printed what merge in the new Print Manager service log?
In the log here. Let me check before I speak out loud here, because there are a number of columns available in the database. While it will tell me which patient was what patient was selected, it does not tell me user from the activity log in the new service client.
Okay. Another question that came through, and this is in reference to labels. With these labels, if the top left label is changed or reformatted, does it change the rest of them?
Only if you change it on the template and you remake the labels. It's not going to automatically go back through all those that you've already created. But you can reuse the template and make your change and then recreate it. So it's actually going to be about the same amount of time, but much faster than having to alter each of the individual labels.
Okay. Next question is, can a form be printed again in web form imprint after the form has been signed, printed, and archived?
It shouldn't. It should be set to remove it, to delete it from the database as an image once it's archived. You should be printing from the archiving system at that point. So the answer is no.
Okay, in reference to mapping, I believe, can you use the arrow keys to move the fields around on the screen?
Not in the print job designer. That's something you can do in the form designer, but no. But you can pick it up with your mouse and move it, or you can right-click on it and go to the destination tab and move it in pixels, approximately 30 to 50 pixels per character and per line.
Okay, squeeze a few more questions in here. When printing forms, do you have the ability to choose a printer?
Not if it's auto printing. If it's web form imprint, then you can set up an alias category and provide a subset, or you can provide the entire list. But usually the organizations want to provide a sublist to a user group or location. So that's possible in web form imprint, but not for auto printing. Remember, in auto printing, they don't see FastPrint. They just see the HIS windows and screens that they have available.
And what is the limit a user can print?
In web form imprint, I'm assuming, because you can set the printing.
I believe so. There's a follow-up that says I saw a 50 count in the demo.
Oh, I see. Well, I've entered $9.99, but not been brave enough to make that go to my printer. But I haven't tried anything larger than a 3-digit number. I'm sorry, I haven't looked at that. Let me see if I still have that open. I do.
There's another question here that asks, is there an audit trail report to access if a user attempts to make a change or edit a patient record?
I'm sorry, Aaron, could you repeat that one for me?
Sure. 1 second here. Is there an audit trail report to access if a user attempts to make a change or edit a patient record?
An end user, a normal user, cannot edit the patient records. Only administrators can do that.
Okay. There's a question here about FormImprint. I know that some customers have the FormImprint product. Now we're focusing on web FormImprint. Can you remind the users here what they need to do in order to get to web FormImprint?
Okay. Web FormImprint is considered an add-on, and you would switch from the SIG client to the web version. That would require a call to tech support through customer service, and they will get the pertinent information, and you guys can go from there.